Thank you very much. Singahlala phansi, you can sit down. Sizawucela Reverend Machaya aze ngaphambili azosenzela umthandazo omfutshane wovula le summit. Reverend Machaya, could you please make your way so that you can give us a short prayer, an opening prayer. Namhlanje asizoyenza la nsithi makufundwe ilizwi kushunyayelo. Wakaloku bekumandi kwezindawo sekuyo salibala into baseseneminende. So mfundisi.
Thank you so much. Mphathiswa siyabulisa kakhulu. All protocol observed. Mninzi umuntu lapha singangamgqibi xa sinokucalula. Sizovula ngomthandazo. But before we do that, lincwadi yeGenesis 11 verse 9. Verse 11 in fact, now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in China and settled there. We are going to pray as we are opening. Anything is possible when we are in one unit and in one accord. And today we are here to proclaim that yonke esifuna singulo masipala yenzeke izokwenzeka, so that we can grow the economic of this district yaseKrisani. Noba sihleli phansi sinjalo, can we bow our heads? Sizothandaza. UnguThixo ulidwala lapha kade, ungowayekhona ingekho indalo. Ayikho into yakabakho ungekho wena. Ungunyanisile igama lakho awuxakwanto. Ungumdala kunezinsuku namalanga. Emini nje Nkosi sondela kuwe isaqala le program. Siyaku-invite njengoThixo. Thatha indawo iba khona phakathi kwethu. Ukuze Nkosi whatever ezokwenzeka nezokuthethwa kule ndawo, emva koko konke uzuko lwakho lubuyele kuwe. Siyaza Nkosi bonke abantu abakhono phakathi kwale ndawo Nkosi, the leadership. Ncede Nkosi ukuze ibe nguwe wedwa olawulayo. Thatha indawo njengoThixo, sincede phakama ngoba unguThixo esimethembileyo. Ayikho into Nkosi wake wayiqala uyishiye phakathi ngoba unguThixo othembakeleyo. Namhlanje siza kuwe njengoThixo. Sizothi Nkosi sikhaphe nakule program. Hamba nathi Thixo wethu, phambi kwethu mayibe nguwe, emva kwethu ibe nguwe, phezu kwenhloko zethu ibe nguwe Nkosi. Yenza njengakwa-Israyeli Jehova. Elithi Nkosi izwi lakho wake Nkosi wabakhapha bephuma eJiphuta. Moya Ngcwele emini wabenzela Nkosi umthunzi ngelifu ebusuku. Layite Nkosi iqange lomlilo. Namhlanje siyakucela ungasishiyi ngoba Nkosi xa ungekho ayikho into ekwazi ukwenzeka. Yolonto Nkosi athi uPetro singayapi xa simka kuwe ngoba amazokuphila kuwe. Sincede Nkosi iqala le program iqale nathi ukuze Nkosi usikhaphe idiyophela, ungashiyi umoya wakho ingcwele mawuba phakathi kwethu ukuze noma yintoni ethethwayo neyenzekayo Nkosi yenzeke Jehova, ukuze uzuko lwakho luphakanyiswe njalo Nkosi. Asingelibali imoya ingcwele. Uprogram director Nkosi namhlanje abalenqubo bancede Thixo wethu, give them wisdom Father besayiqhuba ukuze Nkosi bayiqhube Nkosi benawe ngaphakathi kwabo. Siyathanza sikholwa ukuthi konke sicela kuya kusenzela ngoYesu Kristu Inkosi yethu. Everybody say amen.
Nkosi kakhulu mfundisi. I'm very glad that I'm the only one with a program today. So you depend on me. Zonke ezabeni nazo iprogram bezikhutshwa. Nomeya naye ufumene surprise de kanti sine program esindala zonke. Basebenza nomeya lo bamsebenza naye wakhupha iprogram yakhe yathi kanti nayo eyakhe indala. So if you are looking at the old program, we've got new. Due to time constraints, we are not going to waste time. We're going to go straight into the program. My name is Mlungisi Mvoko. I've been requested to facilitate the first part of the program. We were here not so long ago in the pre-summit. Most of you were here. It was in preparation for this summit. Was always objective is to grow the economy of Krisani, whose objective is to attract investment, whose objective is to ensure that there are more jobs created, and so on and so on. I'm just mentioning it as we start. Before we continue, I'm going to request that the Executive Mayor of Krisani District Municipality, Councillor Wongama Kela, to welcome us all. Sawuthi ke emveni koko zonke enye izinto Mayor sendigqwithile kwalapha ekuqaleni yabona sendijikile silandele emveni koba usamkele. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Program Director, Honorable MEC Mvoko, Minister of Small Business Development, Mama Undabeni Abrams, the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Tata Ulamula, Minister of Finance. I am informed that he is connected virtually because he is currently out of the country, but a participant in this very important summit. The Premier of the province of the Eastern Cape, Udada Mabuyane, who is in our own space in the district but attending to something and will be joining us shortly. MEC Math, she's the MEC responsible for health in the province, but tied to the district of Krisani, as she is the DDM champion in line with the resolution of the provincial cabinet. Of course, Minister Lamula is the DDM champion in line with the decision of the national cabinet and deployed to the district of Krisani. MEC for Rural Development and Agrarian Reform and Development, Mama, Peters, executive mayors and mayors, MMCs, chief whips, speakers, and all councillors from all 7 municipalities in our own space. Of course, it's your district municipality and all 6 local municipalities. The chairperson of the board of the Krisani Development Agency, eminent panelists, esteemed representatives of business and labor, all government officials, including those who are from state-owned entities, members of the media who are part of us, ladies and gentlemen, kodwa ndingabe andigqibanga ukubulisa if I do not greet abefundisi. Program Director MEC Dadumvogo, it is my pleasure and privilege to warmly welcome all of you to this very first District Economic Development and Investment Summit. It brings together key representatives from national, provincial, and local government, representatives from all state-owned entities, business sector, farmers, labor, various industry players and authorities, investors, institutions of higher learning, traditional leaders, youth representatives, cooperatives, and the civil society at large. We're indeed pleased and humbled that all of you responded, and thrilled to finally be here with all of you. We're gathered here today to seek workable, practical solutions to the real challenges faced by our people and society in general. The head of the Presidency Investment and Infrastructure Commission warned us recently when he said, I want to quote, "As long as the poor are hungry, the rich will never sleep." We so believe that this can be avoided. The total population of our district program director is about just over 862,000 people, of which the working age is above 516,000, with a whopping 46% of them remain unemployed. The share of children between the ages of 0 to 14 is about 32.4%, compared to the national figure of 28.5%. And youth of working ages from 20 to 34 is about 27.4%, compared to the national average of 28.5%. The per capita income in Krizani is 38,800 compared to the 46,200 and 66,600 provincially and nationally, respectively. People living below poverty line is about 74.9%, and our economic growth on average from 2010 to 2020 has been a negative 5.5%, and in 2019-2020, and had been growing since then with about 0.7%, all of which are below both the provincial and national average. This is the reality we must paint. This is the reality we are confronted with. This is a reality we must, all of us, confront collectively and in a process overcome. We're facing several challenges as a district, and of course I would say the province and the country, even though I'm speaking on behalf of the district. And some of those challenges are resulting from COVID-19 pandemic, the deep disruption of the national and global economy, the Ukrainian war that has interrupted global supply chain movements, still reeling from the 2021 July unrest, but also the flood rains of the past summer. All of these challenges have contributed enormously on risk facing our economy, with rising fuel prices, food prices, particularly wheat and sunflower oil, rising energy prices, rising interest rates, rising inflation, tougher financial circumstances that all of us are facing, the national debt crunch, and indeed an unstable rand value. Municipalities are struggling to fix dilapidated infrastructure, roads damaged more by the recent floods, general filth of our own towns, electricity cut-offs, inconsistent water supply, low collection of revenue, decreasing grants, public infrastructure and community facilities which are being vandalized on a daily basis, the general state of lawlessness, trust deficit with law enforcement agencies struggling to contain and that giving rise to mob violence in some instances, and with business confidence that continues to dip. This scenario is indeed Program Director ghastly to contemplate. It is so because tomorrow, which is the 14th of July, we'll be remembering the commemoration of the 1789 Bastille Day in France, which marked the beginning of the French Revolution. A generation which then ignores history has no past and indeed no future. As we are fully aware of our past, Karl Marx once remarked, and I want to quote, "History repeats itself, first as strategy, second as farce." Such could be an outcome of the current national discourse if we do not act with agency and agility. Program Director and delegates, time is not on our side. The first thing is we're painting this gloomy picture that we should do in this summit is to rise above all our differences, and want to call upon all of you to do so, and do so with common purpose to reclaim, renew, and rebuild our society through resolving on a broad-based social compact to generate hope and goodwill for sustainable economic growth and job creation to thrive. As the political leadership, we are committed to spare no effort on building consensus among all stakeholders, and indeed the summit should provide that platform. We are indeed willing and able on managing and actually taking hard choices and ensure that our focus should center around the objectives of pushing growth and investment. Secondly, we need to improve service delivery challenges for the citizenry by ensuring that our budgets are spent on planned projects at budgeted cost and on time. And we can only do so through the district development model. As we have heard about our challenges, we would need to create additional fiscal space to augment the public investment is made by crowding in private investment. We would need to build the capacity of all our municipalities for them to deliver on their mandates through active and able citizenry. We indeed must call on all of us to join the fight against corruption in order to ensure the public, in order to assure our public of the government's commitment to restoring integrity and accountability. Thirdly, Program Director, we zoned and we want to relate to this summit very early on, that we have zoned our district into 3 economic corridors for development. One of those corridors is your Sisulu Development Corridor, your R61, which links your Engcobo, Kofimbaba, Queenstown, Takastad, and Cradock. The next corridor, your Ndondo Development Corridor, which links the town of Dordrecht, Indwe, Kala, Lady Frey, and Queenstown. The last corridor is your Kalata Development Corridor, which links Whittlesea, Queenstown, Molitino, Middleburg to Cradock along the N10. And therefore, this summit must therefore centering around those 3 development corridors, deliberate, and again, as you may have seen the program, that the summit will then deliberate around 6 pillars that would then affect these corridors. The first pillar would be your sustainability and economic infrastructure investment, the agriculture and agri-processing. The third one would be your forestry and cannabis and hemp. The fourth one would be your mining, enterprise, financing, and manufacturing. The fifth one will be your digital ICT industry, auto sector, and indeed renewable energy. The last one in our own space will then talk to tourism, hospitality, and heritage. This summit must then direct its deliberations and discussions around these 6 pillars. And of course, as I said, these 6 pillars must then fit into the work that we do in the 3 corridors I have talked to earlier on. We expect this discussion should indeed be underpinned by skills development initiatives, the spirit of entrepreneurship and business development. These, we believe, are the focus areas that our broad-based social compact shall visualize creatively and innovatively. We need to find space to talk about the township and rural economies that our district has in abundance. Indeed, we need to further reflect on the mushrooming of more foreign-owned shops in our townships. We must think out of the box. We need, therefore, to also further revitalize retail shops in our townships and villages. We need to reimagine the township and rural economies, as we said, and do so in ensuring that the ownership of space, localization, and production and retail thrive in our own space. Lee Kuan Yew once said, to create wealth, high motivation and incentives are crucial to drive people to achieve, to take risks for profit, or there will be nothing to share. So as we focus on, which again is the immediate focus of capital, making profits, but those profits must equally be shared with others. Otherwise, if you do not do that, what I then said earlier on, including the challenges that I talked to, it's something that we unfortunately will not be able to avoid. We must accelerate land reform in a manner that is inclusive, just, and equitable, ensuring that small-scale farmers benefit from land redistribution. These and others that I will not talk to, hopefully the summit will be able to talk to. These commitments demand of all of us to rise above the social, economic, and political fault lines and find our common humanity and shared patriotism. We are not helpless, nor are we without agency. We should look no further than ourselves in order to find solutions to the challenges that face us. In conclusion, as the old African proverb says, if you want to travel fast, go alone. If you want to travel far, go together. Let us put together our investments and our expertise. Chris Hani district is the investment destination and it is open for investment. We are calling upon all potential investors to indeed come to the party. Let us align our agendas and funds for the common good and in constant cooperation. Together, Program Director has welcomed all of you. We believe we can have an impact that will then make us proud. Today is yet another step in the road together. That long road is to sustainable job creation, economic empowerment, and sound investments in our district. I therefore look forward, Program Director, to the discussions over this period of 2 days. And indeed, all of you, you are welcomed to this summit. Thank you so much.
Can we give the mayor a round of applause? That's much better. We are going to try and catch up with time for the next hour, go a bit faster, and then go. We'll try and relax. Thank you very much, Mayor, for welcoming us and giving us the objectives of the summit. The next speaker would be the District Economic Perspective by Advocate Andy Lemini, who is the chairperson of the board. I'm mindful that there is an item that is supposed to come and tell us who is here. I will decide when that item will come, if it will come at all. Advocate Mini, okay, your 15 minutes starts now. Can you please come forward?
Thank you, Honorable MEC, the Program Director for today. Ladies and gentlemen, we're launching the pack house this morning. And the acting CEO introduced us to the lady who's I think she's a project manager there. And the MEC came to me and said, I don't think you are hearing what this lady is saying. I think you are concentrating to the eloquent voice and the now sounding voice. No, I did hear MEC what that lady was saying. I was just concentrating to the positives. We are at the Economic Development Summit, so we must look at the positives. Ladies and gentlemen, in a much more higher kind of note, allow me to express my deepest gratitude to all the dignitaries that are here, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Honorable Lamola, the Honorable Minister of Small Business Development, Madam Stella Ndabeni, the Minister of Finance in absentia who is connected virtually, the Premier of the province who will be joining us, the Minister, MEC responsible for economic development and treasury in the province, the Honorable Mvoko, our own executive mayor in the district, Mr. Ungamagela, as well as Ms. Peters, the Honorable Minister responsible for agriculture and agrarian reform. I understand, ladies and gentlemen, that this is an economic summit. Therefore, we must also polish our English. My grandfather used to say, if you bring your girlfriend at home, we're going to look at her with the eyes of technicality. Some jongana ngendlela lavungula ngayo. Ungasiphathela umuntu one low self-esteem engadakana metric. That's what my grandfather used to say. So may his soul rest in peace. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to flow from the exact presentation that the executive mayor did. He gave us the political landscape, also the economic landscape of the district. But my presentation will be most populated by statistics so that we are able to contextualize the economic demographics of the province. The population outlook of this district in 2010, we're sitting at 818,000 of the active human capital in this particular district. In 2010 and 2020, we're sitting at 880. And with that, we have Ingoba Etemba as the fastest growing population producer, and Inokum Gijima as the greatest depositor of the human capital in the district. It means, therefore, comrades, Mayor Zonke, there is something good that has been done in Ingoba Etemba. I don't know what they do, in what season, but there's something good that they are doing, that they're the fastest growing in terms of population. We'll then see as we move that it is not only in terms of population, but it is also in other respect that they are also fastest growing. We'll then compare what we have as a district and our locals and what is our deposit in terms of population to the population of the province and ultimately to that of the country. We're also making a comparison that the population of this district is mainly and dominantly by young people. 50% plus, in fact, almost 60% of this population that I've referred to is people who are below the age of 40. It means, therefore, that we have a relatively young population, which will also inform the basis of the discussion in this summit, that our solution must be young people driven. That is the context of this. And we're also making an observation that the highest dominance of this population is also women. And women also are almost at 1/3 of this population, 2/3 of this population. If we're in Swaziland, Minister Ndabeni, I know there was a proclamation made not so long ago saying that it will be illegal for one man to marry less than 5 wives. And you come to think of that, if it can happen here, how many men would want to comply tomorrow? They would have got a very good excuse. And let me comply. But in South Africa, we don't have that proclamation. So we're still 1:1. But those are the demographics. In 2020, the district contributed, and now we're looking at our contribution as this district to the gross domestic product, both of the province and that of the country. In 2020, we contributed 30.7 billion. And this was an improvement if it's compared to the 16.7 billion that we contributed in 2010. So it means in the space of just above 10 years, the GDP of this district had grown almost double. And that is why we're saying the platforms of this nature, such as this Economic Development Summit, may provide a platform for a consensus that how can we possibly double our efforts. And we're of the view, as the district and the agency, that that is possible. We just have to reach sufficient consensus and see how possibly can we double our efforts. This, what I've referred to earlier, marked 8.11% of the provincial GDP, but also deposited 0.62% to the national GDP. So the Chris Hani as a district is a factor to the national GDP, those who are dealing with numbers would tell you that it'd make a lot of difference if you are to lose 0.62 of the national GDP. Intsika yetu, in terms of our local municipalities, has become the second largest growth with 0.83 in terms of their annual growth. Emalahleni scoring the lowest, being 0.29%, while Inquba Etemba, and this is what I've said earlier about Inquba Etemba, have actually scored the highest, which is 1.23% between 2010 and 2020. We are also making a point that in terms of the GDP growth and the comparison of the demographics at that level, the production sector is sitting at 43.7, community service is sitting at 20.6, the trade and financial sector, they are sitting at 14.7%. Now, these colleagues, what it means, therefore, is that as the district, we are relying more on social services. The people who are contributing much on the GDP, it's people who are employed by government, it's your teachers, it's people who benefit out of social services grants and other things. And we're saying that is not sustainable in terms of the GDP. Because the GDP in itself, it must be self-productive. It must be able to generate what it can sustain the GDP. But if we're going to rely on national fiscus, by the time that the national fiscus is beginning to shrink, we'll never be able to sustain the economy. We're also making a point that if you look at mining itself, we are registering 0.1. It means we are not found at all within the mining sector. Though we have got the longest coal belt, right from Amalahleni just up to Elundini, and we have not exploited the full potential of that particular potential that we have as this particular district. You look at industries like transport, we're sitting at 19.1. It means, therefore, this economy is sustained by people who are doing business in the area of transport and others, as well as construction is sitting as second last, and the retail. If you look at construction, it does not really represent sustainable kind of employment. It's contracts that are there, multi-year projects, 3 years at maximum, and when those constructions are done, those people are effectively going to lose employment. The point that we're trying to drive at home, Mr. Clark, is that we are falling short in our production level. We're not producing. And that is what we must look at as this district. At agro-processing and the manufacturing, we must concentrate so much on that so that we can score high level of production. As I said earlier, that we have contributed 16.7 billion in 2010, and later in 2020 we have contributed 30.7, and that in terms of our national GDP has actually only scored us 1% of growth, because in 2010 we're sitting at 0.61, and in 2020 we're sitting at 0.62 in terms of the national GDP. The demographics of shares in terms of what each municipality contributes in the district growth, Inokum Gijima is contributing 48%. Now, one may ask why a larger chunk goes to Inokum Gijima. Traditionally, what happens to this district is that anybody who's from the other rural municipality who's looking for greener pastures, the first point of knock is Inokum Gijima. They all come to Queenstown, they stay in Queenstown. Now, the Queenstown also area faces so much burden, so much that it cannot carry everybody who's looking for greener pastures in this particular district. Hence, we are bringing a discussion that let us make this area an economic hub and become deliberate in our efforts, because it is an attracting factor in terms of the demographics and the employment opportunities that exist within the district. Inquba Temba also as the fastest growing, it's sitting at 18.3%, Insegayetu at 10.34%, Abikuma at 9.14%, Emalahleni at 6.83%, as well as Sakesizo 8.35%. Now, what it means is that there is a potential between Emalahleni and Sakesizo to grow, because the coal belt where the mining has been discovered, it can actually allow those two particular local municipalities to grow. They just have to exploit the full potential of what they have. As I said earlier, that the community service employs, is a larger employer. If you go out here, the business people, they know that they will only have money when it's SASA days. It's month end, right up to the 7th day of the month, because that is when the wheels of economy are beginning to be oiled. And any other day from that, it becomes lull in the business sector, simply because we are relying more on the social service sector. This platform, therefore, provides an opportunity for a sufficient consensus that let us discuss, let's come up with strategies, mechanisms of how to tamper with the status quo and actually change what we see for the better. Colleagues, as we have said that we are providing these statistics as a perspective of the demographics and the economics and the scales, economies of scales in our district, to provide the basis for this summit to have a sufficient discussions on the discussions that we need to have. And therefore, we've come to the conclusion of this critical perspective and analysis, and I hope, therefore, that it will provide basis for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Advocate Mini. At least there's progress. Now we'll move to the next item on the program. Programs. So ngokanisendedwanga. Kodwa ke ndilifumene ithuba lonke ndibendedwa. We'll invite the Honorable Minister, Ms. Ndabeni Abrams, the Minister of Small Business Development, to come and share with us about SMME support. Yabona ke Minister, lento yakho ka small business, no small department. Into yoba xa ufumene iplatform uyichazela ndawo yokugqibela. The most important part kweli gama lakho yile ka development. Small business development. Sikunike lo thuba ke ngoku. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you so much, Program Director. Honorable Minister Ronald Lamula, my comrade and brother. Greetings to the other counterparts who are connected virtually. MEC Mvogo, who's here directing our program. MEC Peters, the host, Executive Mayor, the Hani Development Agency as led by the chair, our other state-owned entities that are here, government officials, but most importantly, the business sector. Good morning. How are you? Oh, you look like you're hungry already. The chairperson of the development agency did explain that we started at the Pig House where we were launching, so we were not late. I know some of you said when we came in, we are late. The first leg for us started at Ezibeleni to open the Pack House, get to see the good work that is being done in the partnership by the public and the private sector. So ladies and gentlemen, allow me to, I don't want to say thank you for being here, But allow me to then say we are really glad that we are joining you today as the department, as explained by MEC Mvogo. Indeed, our name is the Department of Small Business, and our say name is Development, if you want to separate it like that, right? So just like you call me Stella Ndabeni or Stella Ndabeni Abrahams, never leave behind the development, because that's the most critical component of the work that we do in our name. Program Director, we were here at some time when the municipality and the agency hosted the breakfast session as part of the pre-summit events. And of course, we are well aware of all the efforts that have been put in place by not only the municipality, the agency, but other stakeholders that have made this day a reality. I'm not looking or talking about logistics only, but the thought process that gave birth to all of this, as the executive mayor outlined the different work streams that we'll be focusing on as we deliberate today. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, this summit takes at a time that coincides with the July 2021 incident. I like emphasizing that. This time, South Africa was shocked by the incidents that took place in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. And this time, 2022, we are here in Chris Hani to talk about how do we join hands in ensuring that we can claim whatever that has been lost or reclaim, but at the same time, we look at reinvesting where we disinvested, whilst we are also looking at the new opportunities. It therefore makes us to be proud to say, in that journey of trying to reconstruct that economy, the small businesses are at the center of it. Of course, as we are talking about what we saw in South Africa, as things stand, we are globally affected again by the fight, if you see in Europe, especially in the developing countries. And that again is gonna be felt not only by small businesses, but all businesses and the consumers of the products that are consumed. Definitely, we are aware now that those fights that we see will lead to lots of challenges, not only prices that will increase, but also the issue of scarcity of food, which is why it becomes important that as much as we have the produce that we have, that we want to export to others, but we do think about the domestic investment too, because when people are hungry, they can think properly. When people are hungry, they can be productive in their respective areas. And again, this talks to the ecosystem that we are operating in. As things stand, of course, according to the projections, the South African Reserve Bank is likely to raise the interest rate, and therefore that means the SMMEs will be affected, and therefore they will have to raise their prices, and so does the big businesses. Eskom blackouts, rising transport costs, and other variables are not making our lives any easier, and therefore present dangers that our economy must contend with. Now, as I outline all of that, moving from the global space to home, the South African context, and the chairperson of the Development Agency did talk to the district perspective. How do we then make sure that as we experience these turbulences and these challenges, they do not find us in a shaking environment? How do we then build the capability of our institutions to be able to stand the test of time? And the recent results, as issued by AGSA, are not giving us any hope, which means we need to do more but better than we did. And that doing better requires all of us to join hands, wherein we can partner with all those that have the relevant capacity, because the failure to build a capable state will therefore translate to lots of challenges for those that are in business, because policies and everything are crafted in business. That's why it's important that as we're calling for these investors that are here, we look at our infrastructure capacity, because the poor road infrastructure, the energy instabilities, and everything else that hammers the work that we do means that we're not going to be able to attract many investors as we could. The region has been described as a region that has the potential and a great contribution that it makes to the economy. And therefore, if we are to join hands and say together, government and the private sector, including the communities, we think there's a role that we can play in enhancing the social compact that we're talking about. We will be able to overcome some of the challenges, and indeed we will be able to do away with the unemployment and poverty that is facing our people. As responsible government, we have a responsibility to make sure that we create a conducive environment, and that only talks to the policy and regulatory environment. But again, if the society that we lead does not participate, it will also show in the quality of the policies and regulations that we are making. Hence, we're calling upon all of us to join hands and make sure that we play our part and make South Africa, make Eastern Cape, and make Chrizani to be great again. Program Director, we're offering lots of programs. As I indicated that this morning we started at the Pack House Ezibeleni. We very excited to learn of the story wherein we've been able to join hands, but not only to join hands in putting a building and production, but to find that the produce that is an outcome of the work that is being done there finds expression to the markets. Because in most cases we talk about these investments, but we do not see them in the market. Those that were here last time will recall that I did make a call that every time you're gonna have your meal, do think about how many people have been employed in that money that you spend. How many people are beneficiaries? Because as we consume, we should also look at the socio-economic impact, and it is true that consciousness that we will be able to say we need to change how we do things. If we think that food just comes and because I have an opportunity to have money and then I can consume, and you don't think about the entire ecosystem, it means we're not going to achieve what we want to achieve. As part of building that state in capacity, it's very important again that we look at not only the functioning of the municipalities, but to ensure that municipalities have access to various skills that must be able to drive that narrative in terms of creating a conducive environment. And at the center of that is the strategy, because a municipality that does not have a clear strategy confuses everyone, not only its voters, not only its residents, but any other person that can identify an opportunity in the area. Of course, economics, business management, financial modeling, investment analysis, economic intelligence, environmental scanning, legal research, engineering or infrastructure, project management, engineering, planning and GIS, governance, asset management, statistics, and as many as others. And at the center of that again is community facilitation. And I am citing all of these, executive mayor and the council with municipal manager, that in most cases you find that we don't pay attention to the strategy that we have to say what kind of capability do we need that must therefore fulfill that we have outlined in our vision and mission. And it becomes important that those deployed or employed at the corporate services level have an understanding of what the CEO wants to do. It becomes a challenge wherein you have a CFO that does not share the vision of the CEO. It becomes a challenge that the council, having galvanized support from the public, it makes the commitments to say we are going to do A, B, C, D, and then you find those responsible to allocate resources doing something contrary to what has been committed to. That simply talks to a CFO who doesn't understand or share a vision with a CEO. Whether I'm Ms. Mvogo, we talk about that at local level, but it is the same that we have a premier who will go deliver his state of the provincial address, and we find the MEC responsible for treasury putting funds on other things. There's contradictions. And this is why, when we came up with the DDM, we said there's a need for us to plan together. Because when we plan together, forgetting all the nicknames that we have, small business development, justice, mang mang, and all the other names that we have, when we plan as a family, we know that people must eat. When we plan as a family, we know that we've got to look at their well-being in terms of their health status. Kids must be educated. They must then have access to better shelter. And then we look at the resources that we have to say which one comes first. But if at the same time we want those to compete, it talks to a disaster at home when you plan. I'm bringing home because it is the environment that you're more closer to, the communication between those that have means in terms of being the parents or the children, whoever that has financial means at home. But that planning by the family becomes very important to say, yes, we have lost our granddad. As a result, I will contribute towards a tombstone, and the other one I will bring sheep, because you want the success of a funeral. Now, if we think we're gonna treat government and the investment that is happening in the country, treat it as something different, we'll never achieve what we want to achieve. And this is why we emphasize the importance of alignment in the economic development strategies from local to national. Because therefore you are able to guide whoever that is an investor to say, come and invest, and these are our priorities. These are the opportunities that we have. Come and invest, you look, these are our priorities. These are the opportunities that we have. Then you look at the bursaries that you offer as municipalities, as government, and whoever, to say, these monies that we are spending in this educational system, are they giving us value, or we continue to fund and our children continue to stay at home unemployed because of the mismatch? But if we are deliberate in saying, this is where we want to be, this is what we have, and this is what we need, therefore whoever is coming must join hands in helping us achieve what we need, not the nice to haves. The issue of the land tenure is another high-risk factor that contributes to investors running away from certain areas. Program director, once more, this side of the country is blessed with very good land. But if you look at the bylaws that we pass and everything that talks to that, there's so many restrictions when people want to put investment. You find out that people are saying, we don't need money, we just need your land. But then there's so many protocols when we might access that. And these are the things that we must look at as these investors will be pledging their support. Ours is to say, how are we gonna create a conducive environment so that they can come back with more money and more investment, because that's what we need. I've already mentioned the issue that infrastructure is a bugbear for most municipalities. And again, These are the primary things of saying, how do we make sure that if we have, like we've come from Ezibeleni, a project like that that must then integrate the locals from this area to whoever in Gauteng that must have access to our produce, and Dubai, that is the final destination for now as per the export agreements that have been signed. But that processing in terms of the infrastructure on logistical side, to the warehousing side, and all the components of the value chain is something that again really prohibits many people from participating in the economy and therefore scaring investors that would want to come here. The issue of the zoning costs is another scary one. Of course, we take too long, we don't have quicker turnaround and assistance wherein investors are interested. We've got to commit to the people of this area that we will do our best to make sure that we address those, because we can't afford to lose investors at this juncture. Of course, there's another crisis. Whether it's a good one or a bad one, those that are in local government will tell me. I know Salga has been complaining about it. If you look at the report on municipal trade and investments that Salga commissioned, it indicates that Pluma legislation has a negative impact on trade and investment in municipalities. It talks again to the nature of the turnaround times that we're taking, up to 18 months, and you think the investors have that patience to wait whilst there are people who are saying we can make this happen. Once more, we've lost many investments because of this. So there's a need to have a dialogue and see how best we can go about these things without losing sight of towards small businesses. It is a sad story. I complain about the 30% allocation to small businesses and locals. The other time I was here, I said, do you think it is wise that out of a budget of 1,000 rands as the municipality that you have, you only allocate 300 rands to your locals? And these are the people that must put you into power. These are the people that must pay your rates. These are the people that must make sure that the municipality exists, and you believe that 300 rands or 30% of whatever that you have is sufficient. Yes, it's a government policy, but as part of building an active citizenry, you have a responsibility to engage on that. This is an investment summit. How much are we referring to when we're talking about investment? Are we only focusing on foreign direct investment, ignoring the domestic investment? And again, I link it to the incidents of July 20 that's happening. And if we do not change how we, of being a critical eye and looking at those important components of the projects that we want to achieve as the municipality, and in this context, Chris Hani. Of course, there's other platforms that they can collaborate with. If you're looking at the project preparatory unit at DBSA and IDC, you can partner with them and see how investment projects are packaged and therefore be able to attract other investors, and tagging along when we undertake international trips. Because you may have good products here, but you may not have market. But then if the municipality makes it clear in its own investment book, they're able to say we have interest, we have identified these 3 critical areas, and therefore to be part of a delegation that goes to certain countries, whether to learn or to seek opportunities for our people. It would make sense that we don't close and understand how we do business, and people think that we are offering grants. I'm your social development, man. I'm small business development. So I know the difference between a grant and a loan, and I take it that we all know. So the money that we give to you is blended financing mostly, which talks to a component of a grant and a component of a loan. We are giving you a grant because we know that business at times does not easily take off, and therefore you should be able to take care of certain costs. And then when you make money, you are able to repay our money so that we can take it to other small businesses. Mawufuna grant, Tsona mo ku MEC ba walapha Eastern Cape. Mani Siphokazi Mani. Umphathiswa wendodla ke lo. Thina yashe masingabendodla siphuhlisa amashishini amancinci akhulayo naphakathi. Micro, cooperative, small and medium. Not just small, right? We develop them, and for us to develop them, we've got to ensure that they have access to the financial resources too. So we offer lots of products, and as I said in relation to this, we've looked at the business development support. We partnered, as I mentioned earlier, we made some contribution in the pack house that we've been to, but there's more opportunities, especially on the small enterprise manufacturing program. So Dolopu, I know that during the breakfast session, you bragged about your group that produces wine, farms grapes, but they still have to be processed in Cape Town. And of course, I do want it processed here. I have my CEDA delegation. Can you stand up? I don't have time, CEDA people. Where are the officials from this province? CEDA. You are here, chairperson. That's the chairperson of CEDA. We have said CEDA must therefore work with the municipality, working with the municipality in order to make sure that they help the small businesses, especially the specific one that I made reference to, Lababe Wine. Help them package a proposal that they must submit, and CEDA will know where it is submitted. Nalapo ayuzuba indodla. It's going to be blended financing. Blended financing so that you can build the distillery and be able to take off on your business, whilst we will be helping you expand the reach in terms of the market. Again, if you look into the Township and Rural Enterprise Program, you find that there's lots of areas that we are funding there. Right now, I made mention of the challenges that we are faced with that are crippling the economy in relation to the ESCOM blackouts, but it's an opportunity for those that are in the energy space, and we are there to say we can help you if you're manufacturing, whether you're a township or a rural business. We call upon yourselves to partner with us and ensure that we can reclaim, we can reconstruct and rebuild our economy. And at the center of that is business development, as I mentioned earlier. Program director, because I get paid for this work, I can go on. And the day is not about me, but the investment conference or summit of Chris Hani District Municipality. Allow me to say, you have a partner in us. Let's continue to build where we have started until we transfer them to the Minister of Oligarchs, Minister Patel. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister. Can we give the Minister a warm round of applause, please? Thank you very much. Minister of Finance last week, Waka Budget Council, was giving us an example of one municipality. It's a metropolitan municipality. It's in Eastern Cape, so I'm not going to tell you which one. One of our metropolitan municipalities. He met a businessman who's just who's just moved to the Western Cape. He's in the retail. He's opening now his retail shops in the Western Cape. And he says, I'm leaving Eastern Cape. You know what, Minister? If for rezoning, business rezoning, in that municipality, it takes 24 months. And for that rezoning here in the Western Cape, within a month, I would have received a response. I didn't want to say to the minister that at some point in my life I had witnessed that it is true. So Mayor, as you are attracting investors into Chris Hani, make sure your municipalities respond quickly to applications is done by the investors. It is one killer. It is a killer. I can give you many examples. I receive those every day. 24 months for rezoning. And it's true, I know, but I'm not going to mention the municipality. Thank you very much, Minister. We've covered a lot of ground. Sizamile. Kodwa ke masiqhube. Let us now take the opportunity of inviting the Honorable Minister Ronald Lamola, Minister for Justice and Correctional Services, to deliver his address on towards DDM implementation program in Chris Hani. He is the champion. Welcome, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Program Director, and all MECs who are present here. My colleague, Minister Stella Ndabini Abrahams, the Chris Hani District Municipality Executive Mayor, Mr. Wongama Gela, Inokum Kijima Local Municipality Mayor, Mr. Tembega Bunu, and all other mayors who might be here present, the chairperson of the board of the Chris Hani Development Agency, Advocate Mini, and all councillors who are present, members from the investment community, the private sector, church leaders, and all stakeholders who have been invited to the summit. I stand here with a sense of a great attitude to the organizers of this summit for extending an invitation to me to be part of this vital gathering. As a district champion of the area, it is a great honor to see multitude of people coming together to plan and plot investment and to grow the economy of the district, which I hope will respond to the challenges we are facing as a country. These occasions comes at an important juncture in our journey to rebuild South Africa's economy from the shock of COVID-19 and the current geopolitical uncertainties. The South African economy is projected to grow below 2% over the next 2 years. This also means unemployment could remain elevated in our country. The path to change this painful future is by focusing on revitalizing crucial provinces and municipalities that can deliver economic gains. This summit is well placed to provide us with such a hopeful future. The Eastern Cape province plays an important role in South Africa's economy, contributing approximately 8% to the national GDP. Although typically considered as a rural province, the provincial economy is mainly dominated by the secondary and the tertiary sectors. The manufacturing industry accounts for almost 14% of the province's GDP, while trade and finance contribute approximately 20% each. The automotive sector accounts for 2% of manufacturing gross value added, generating 51% of South Africa's motor exports and producing half of the national passenger vehicles. Although the focus in the past few years has mainly been on the aforementioned sectors, agriculture holds enormous economic potential for the province. This varies from primary to agro-processing and could uplift the rural economies and provide much needed jobs. The Eastern Cape province is a notable player in several commodities, including about 81% of South Africa's milk, roughly 27% of South Africa's citrus, and about 89% of South Africa's wool. These above-mentioned economic activities have also yielded employment opportunities for the province. Still, we have a long way to go. Along with KwaZulu-Natal and Limpopo, are among the most impoverished and with high level of unemployment. We gather here today at the Chris Hani as the second largest district in the province, making up almost a third of its geographical area. The district comprises of 6 local municipalities. The vastly agricultural area provides an ideal investment opportunity for agro-processing, and its proximity to the ports of East London and Port Elizabeth, with links to major routes like the N6 and the N10, is an added economic advantage. This will build on an already established agricultural practices and culture in this province. The underutilized land in the district makes a vital business case, given that we have got high rate of unemployment, and also to contribute to food security and commercial agriculture. Regions such as Ngobo, local municipality, which has the highest percentage of people living in poverty, are examples that will motivate us to unlock the economic possibilities of the province. Importantly, we know that the unemployment rate for Chris Hani, it is also very high, in line with the national trends and also with the global trends. A very uncomfortable level which we will have to respond to. And ourselves in the criminal justice cluster know that where there is high level of unemployment and poverty, it also coincides with the high level of violent crime, and crime that is linked to economic opportunities. So this summit is not only a response to the economic growth, to issues of unemployment, but it's also a response to crime in the country and in the district itself. The question a summit like this must be able to respond to is what type of investments will turn these statistics around. The high level of depopulation suggests that citizens are leaving this area for greener pastures, and the increase in unemployment means that economic activities are depressed. I will not want to believe it the way the chairperson of the board has put it. The decreasing population, that we need that Swaziland law, or ukuthi akusetshenzwa la eChristian. Having outlived the challenges, we must also be frank, especially amongst ourselves. We cannot speak about investments without addressing the governance and institutional capacity issues we have as a district and in the local municipalities. I think the program director spoke to some of them, including my colleague, the Minister Stella Ndabeni, and also the executive mayor. I nearly said the chairperson. When he opened the meeting, the Auditor General's outcome further regressed, improvements were rare, and the general trend over the past 4 years remained negative. This further undermines efficient and effective governance and delivery of services and results in ongoing protest. We have to turn around the situation in our local municipalities, improve basic service delivery. The most basic service delivery can contribute to investment in the economy and also for proper running of small businesses. Agriculture and agro-processing should be part of the economic strategy for this region, and indeed the whole of the Eastern Cape government. The recently launched Agriculture and Agro-Processing Master Plan offers key pathways for partnerships between government and business. While the plan has been discussed at a national level, the implementation will be at a local level. Chris Hani district should study it and focus on value chains that can thrive in these regions' soils. The province leadership should forge strong relations with agribusinesses in the region to attract core funding and tap into the private sector expertise as we drive development. The focus should not be just on primary agriculture, but across the entire value chain. Additionally, this region has 21.4% of the province's farms and generate 12.6% of the province income. As the world looks to transition from fossil fuel to greener energy, some of the assets are here in the district. This district also has a high level of sugar beet, which is a crucial building block for the development of a sustainable supply chains and biofuels, which uses natural materials instead of petrochemical compounds in manufacturing. A local source of sugar beet could pave the way for the development of an ethanol-producing biofinery. But even here, we must be able to hold each other accountable. This type of investment potential has been mooted since 2012. And so the question must be, what do we have to show for it? I think this is where the Chinese usually says that a plan is meaningless unless it is implemented. And I also hope that these discussions in the summit will ensure that it's translated into real action that will touch and be implementable and can change the economic situation in the district. This is precisely where I would like us to also draw in the district development model. We have many investment projects which can unlock the economic potential of this region. We need to be able to use the great potential of this region to address the various energy challenges the country is facing. I don't have to say anything about ESCO, you know. This is why we have a district development model. With it, we must be able to unlock local opportunities with great speed to resolve some of the national challenges. We need to translate policy into practice in earnest and unlock bottlenecks which may frustrate the full implementation of the district development model. This must lead to better intergovernmental coordination, budgeting, and implementation. Such action will result into improved coherence and significantly boost impact of service delivery. Let us continue fostering partnerships with the private sector to mobilize more investments by creating a conducive environment for these investments to thrive. I hope you can note that I've mentioned the private sector many times. The president was attacked for just saying that the private sector has got a huge role to play in the economy. It's a reality that government alone cannot be able to create enough jobs and grow the economy. We need the private sector to play a role. And in this area, the private sector has also a monumental role to play. I'm also responsible for correctional services at a national level, and also here in the region, we have the SEDA management area, which I do believe with a good interlink with the district and the local municipalities, we can be able to unlock and stimulate agriculture in the area. And we've already had engagements with the district mayor, and hopefully it will also translate into real actions to stimulate agriculture in the area, because we do have the capability, with government working together, to do it and make it realizable. With these words, I want to wish you all the best in this district some economic development summit, and I hope that and pray that it must succeed, because your success will be the success of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Lamula. Another round of applause, please. Dear consulta ke apha. Siyavumelana nomeya. Wonke ixesha silenzile ngoku. Sesikhawuleze sayofika nakwilunch. Kodwa ke after consultation nomeya siyavumelana into yokuba ukansila Bhunu makeze. Ixesha ngo-20 past. Kulantu kwi-program ithi Introduction and Acknowledgement of Gas. Kodwa ngo-half past funeka bagqibile. Abagqithi phaa ku-half past. Ubukansila Bhunu. Yes, a council. Ndinewari uba kusiza wena apha. Kodwa ke mandithembe into yoba noko uzawuba mfutshane. Yabona mos ndimdek nawe. Mna ndithetha into emfutshane. Bendime apha ecam ngoRonald nangoku. Kade ndizithembile ndikha phantsi isitya sigcwele.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Indeed, I will be very economical of time. As I am reading through the list of invitees and attendees that are here, I'll be equally extending my greetings to them. In terms of the political leadership that is here, we have Minister of Small Business and Development, Minister Abrahams, or Ndabeni Abrahams. We also have Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Minister Ronald Lamola. We also have invited the Office of the Premier and the Premier himself, who indicated that he's going to join the program a little bit later. We also acknowledge him in his absentia. MEC Mvoko is also part of the program. MEC Peters, MEC Meth, who is expected to join us later today or tomorrow, and HOD Miki Mama, or Mama. Dr. Da, HOD, is also expected to be here. Are you here? Okay. Also the Department of Roads and Transport, HOD Mafani. You would note that I'm just dealing with provincial government. I will come so to the mayors and executive mayors that are here. Executive Mayor of Inxuba Temba, Honorable Councillor Zonke. Mayor of Insika Yethu was invited to Councillor Mdleleni. She's expected to join us. Mayor of Ngobo, Mayor of Sakisizo is here. Councillor Bunu, the Executive Mayor of Inokom Kijima, who is just attending an emergency. She was here earlier. Executive Mayor of Emalahleni, councillors from different local municipalities, and also municipal managers and regional directors from sector departments. They are all here. I think it's important, Program Director, just to mention, I know that you said I must be very brief. I'm just going to mention the entities that are here, just for purposes of acknowledging them, that they are also invited and they are also here. DPSA, DTIC, Office of the Premier, SANRAL, ECRDA, ECD, Department of Water and Sanitation, our partner NAMAC, Council of Geoscience, USASA, IDC, SIDA, Amadlelo, Agricultural Research Council, Agribusiness Chamber, Sibanye Stillwater, Center of Renewable and Sustainable Energy, Sun Farming, Sundale, PPECB, Piggery Industry, Omnia, PG Bison, Automotive Industry Development Center, BKB, Deciduous Fruit Development Chamber, Elliott Brothers Abato, Lucin Trust, Grain SA, Kashimba Abato, Eastern Cape Parks and Tourism Agency, Transnet, Farmwise. We heard about Farmwise when we were launching at that Peck House in the morning. VCL Manufacturing, Queenstown Private Hospital, Petro SA, Chris Hani Development Cooperative Center, Vuna Seeds, Chris Hani Wool Growers Association, Doni Agricultural Institute, Central Energy Fund. I will just mention the institutions of higher learning is all IWUSU and Ikala College. and also financial institutions, FNB, Standard Bank, and Nedbank, they are here. And also business and co-ops, they are also here. BK Corp, Twiza, Go Green, Plastic Molding, Matan Metal Corporation, Afrisem, Diesel Tech, Queenstown, Jackson's Delta, Truda Snacks, Premier Bread, Lazy 8 Trust, OVK Diesel, GRC, Panela, Kai Cold Storage, SAB, Mila, Lukanji Paper Waste, High Tech Plant, Ivusa Coffins, Izweletu, Simfos, Crickley Dairy, Al ASR Collection and Retailers. Yeah, you must be very careful kan funda amanye amagama. Human Stop Co-op, Bilakem Konjane, Lanti Primary Co-op, Pomasa, Maime Winery, Maine Co-op, Kamata Irrigation Scheme Board, Ngocha CPA, Ngocha Secondary Co-op, Fisheries Dairy, Agri-Chain Food Security, Freshmark System, also BMF, Christian Business Forum, Tools Pack, Vodacom, Cross Malof, Just Milk. We mentioned all of these invitees because we thought it's important that we acknowledge them and you know that all of them are part of this summit. Thank you very much, Program Director.
I-program iyachinja. Ngoku ke xa itshintshayo ndizawuphuma kule ndawo okanye itshintsha kuyo ndinike umuntu ozayiqhuba ubheka phambili because le indawo efuneka ndiyenzile bemna siyotya kuthiwa ke ngoku sidela masingayotya make silinde ndayazi uba abanye balambile sizawuxelelwa ngabantu basimemileyo into yoba sayotya nini sigqibile le neprogram ngoku sawungena kulaa program ithi phase 2 meya ndayazi uba besivumelene itshile meya laa ngoku sawungena kulaa program ithi phase 2 inomphathi wayo ke laa program ithi phase 2 sawunyamezela but I must apologize that lunch is not ready yet. We'll be informed when lunch is ready, and hopefully we are not going to keep people hungry here. So, but let's just be patient. We'll be informed. We'll then go to the next program, which is phase 2. Facilitator wayo Miss Ngiti. Upi Miss Ngiti as the facilitator wayo and convened by Mr. Mhlaba. Ngathi nguwe ngoku. Oyichinchile hayi ke.
Thank you, MEC Mvogo. Kudala ungcochile usuka kuseni. Noba inzwana zakho zibhlungu ngo. Kodwa niyambona mos MEC Mvogo isengumfana. Ukhangelekayo. Kusekhona intombi esithi kazimjonga. Sibe nombilini. Thenga lo MEC uyathetha nje. Hello xesha beqhobosha nje amaqhotshe ebhatyi kangathethe. Thenga uyathetha nje MEC. Thank you very much. He's also the son of the soil. His roots are here in Malahleni. So I saw them bragging in the morning, Mam Tina, Councillor Koni, the mayor of Malahleni, that Malahleni for two and the rest of the world for one. So that's what they were saying. Colleagues, we are now proceeding to the second phase of the program. There was supposed to be a facilitator for this program. It was supposed to be Mr. Tulani Chefuta, who will be joining us tomorrow. He could not depart in Zambia, Lusaka yesterday. He should have been here this morning. So I hope he will be joining us tomorrow, but we will proceed with the program. We are now going to call upon the acting CEO of the agency, Mr. Ala, just to give us a perspective on the corridors, which is expected then to lay basis for the panel discussions that we'll have. After we've had Mr. Ala, is going to continue at least not exceeding 2 o'clock. And from 2 o'clock, we're going to have lunch, and from there, we'll start the panel discussions. Let's give him a round of applause as he's coming.
Thanks so much to my board chairperson. I think like I'm Dimfichane, so so the podium is kind. That's fine. Allow me to greet our executive mayor, the Honorable Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, the Minister of Department of Small Business Development. I wanted to be sure I must do it right this time. The Minister of Finance visually, and also to create the MEC for Economic Development and Treasurer of the Eastern Cape, the MEC for Health as she's coming, and also in the MEC of Rural Development and Agrarian Reform. Our board chairperson, the members of the board, I'm sitting with them there, the MMCs, the mayors and the executive mayors of the local municipalities, and also we have the visitors, executive mayor, I think, from other districts. We're also going to create them, so also just want to note that the industries that are with us, the agencies, the colleagues. I think mine, Chair, is we are saying that it just is to give really a high level of the investment portfolio of the district, as per the pillars. I think one, I'll start with, just want to open, I don't know whether if you are able to sit there. I have some few slides, 8 slides only, Chair. I think number one, Chair, as you have said also, there is a model that the district has proposed. As you have seen, as you have listened from the presentation, the district economic perspective by the board chair, and also the presentations from Executive Mayor and the Honorable Ministers, that will really need to strengthen both the primary production sector, specific focusing on the agri side, and also in the agro-processing, so that we're able really to sustain the tertiary level of our production. That's number one. So we must really be able to improve that. The primary sector, what is our primary sector? Our primary sector is mining and agriculture. We have really a serious belt of the mining sector. I think the CEO for Council for Geoscience is supposed to be around to give us a clue around that one. But whilst we'll be doing that using what we call the hub and spoke model. It is a corridor development plan that we have in achieving that. And we have a map, I don't know if it's appearing, we have a map that we've developed that is focusing really on the development or the profile of the region. For an example, from here up to Engcobo, we call that as a Sisulu corridor. We have really a massive irrigation schemes but within those irrigation schemes, they give you more than 7,000 hectares of land under furrow irrigation. That's a crisis, that's a problem also, that one. We are moving the water from Lubisi, which is really about 28 kilometers using a canal. That water comes straight towards your Kamarazin area. But the management of that infrastructure becomes quite of a challenge. And I think when Mr. Mhlaba is going to come in as a convener of the infrastructure, it really is going to give us really some perspective around that area. And then from there you proceed towards your Engobo area. When you pass your Ngocha, we have very interesting projects there. Your dairy projects, which is Amandero, I think they are working there in that space. Then you proceed up to Engobo, where you have what called the higher rainfall area. So one of the challenges, convener of infrastructure, that we really need to focus from our side, it is a primary production infrastructure. We have a massive value of investment within those 3 irrigation schemes. We have about more than 26 lay dams in Kamata alone. I don't know other lay dams when it comes to your Ngocha and your other areas. But the management of water, the distribution, the network becomes a serious challenge for us. We are losing million cubic liters of water because of how we manage the water or because of the system which we are using. So that pillar is going really to take us through that direction. How would you make sure that we're really be able to manage that? We are spending really a lot of water without any production that is clear or any efficiencies that we have. That is number one. Of which I'm talking about 7,000 hectares of land. That is for us for the production. Then the second one, that means there's also a component of an opportunity cost of water. That means the dependent of water and sanitation, and that how do we make sure that really we are managing that properly. The second one is your Great Fish River. We have about more than 13 farms which has been transferred by Rural Development Land Reform. And we've done, I think there's our engineers, they've been doing a good work in that space, making sure that how do you have an irrigation within those farms. But also not only those emerging farms, we have also very interesting commercial farms around the Cradock space, both your Middleburg and your Cradock area up until your Meyer. And I think the value for that investment, Mr. Mhlaba, takes us up to 120 million rand, focusing really on the irrigation infrastructure of those farms. That means we really need to find a way around that one. Then the third one, have about 200 emerging farms, more than 15,000 hectares of land, between your Elliot, your Indwe, your Dodrek. But those farms are doing about less than 5% of the output. That means we are not doing well. So there is a need of proper infrastructure, a proper management when it comes to that. So an estimation value really, if you can do well when it comes to infrastructure, is always more than 500 million rand. Development of Water and Sanitation have been doing well when it comes to setting up the lay dams and so on. But the only one challenge, convener of the infrastructure that we need to check is around your nexus. So that we're able to do what we call you cannot work in isolation. You cannot allow those who are dealing with the dams work alone, and then dealing with the land works alone. You must come up with a nexus. A nexus is an interdependency system, making sure that the land, the energy, the food, and the water must go together. You must have a proper team that must make sure that for all the agencies and the stakeholders must work together towards that direction. So I think that is number one for us. And in that nexus, as you are aware that the irrigation of agriculture takes about 70% of the water, then that means in the worldwide, now how do you make sure that we are producing very well, working with the Department of Agriculture, your SRDA as our provincial agency, your TPSA. But TPSA must come in to do the planning, proper planning, working with your ECDC and your so on. That means your infrastructure financing and investment becomes key for us. Otherwise, if you're not doing that, we cannot do it really properly when it comes to the economic development towards an investment. That's number one. Now, if you've dealt with that part, the infrastructure component, or just only touching the primary production element, really, from your spoke level, but then also from the industrial part level, that is your common industrial park. And then the second one is to really get into the agro industries. Our honorable ministers have just launched the fresh produce speakhouse, but next to that, she's going to come back with the mayor to launch a fertilizer blending plant. And we've been discussing that with the province, saying that we are spending more than 40% of the input cost per hectare just to focus on the grain production. And yearly, the fiscus is dwindling. So we need to find a way really to manage the inputs or to manage our profit margins. So I think we are busy now procuring that plant, working with the industry partners, and that will be within the Komani Industrial Park. Now the value for that goes up to about 83 million rand, working with the TTIC for 5,000 square meter building, and working with those in the industry. But like for Fresh Respect House, we're working with the Farmwise, and I think for this one, we're working for those really who are dealing with the supply of that. Because we have more than 40,000 hectares, not just only within the Kresani, but then also outside the region. We're working with your with your Joe Kabi, with your Artambo, and also with your Alfrenzo as those region. So the value for that, it goes about 83 million rand, but I think currently we are busy with the procurement of the plant. So that's a second portfolio that we need to table before the house. Then again, you move toward your fodder and your beef fodder banks. And you know that the Department of Agriculture always, when it comes to the winter season, we're always struggling because we don't have a proper fodder bank. We have a good quality of the lucerne around your Kamata areas, good quality of your lucerne around your Great Fish River, around the farms in that space. But how do we really manage that, especially when there is water and everything? So I think we have a proper plan. We have developed that plan, but we're working with the Department of Agriculture. I think there's chief director that is really focusing when it comes to that commercialization around that one. And working with the Global Beef, I think those in the beef space as an industry, I think they are here as industry partners. We're looking for about more than 135 million rand really in the combination of that. Because there is a clear NPV, net present value. Your financial models are clear towards that direction. And then I think I've touched on the fresh produce production and the processing. Working with the Department of Agriculture, they've done a very interesting work around the Kamata, more than 100 hectares, focusing really on the center pivots that we need to have. Because if you focus on the fresh produce, you must have a proper irrigation systems. So I think we've been doing that, working with regional Dr. Da. But I think the value of investment, it goes to about 200 million rand, making sure that more than 2,000 hectares of land must be under production. But not just only production, but it must also be under irrigation, where we have your rivers, because we're focusing between your Konga as a farm unit, your Kamata, your Ndabe Temba, your Koka around the Engobo areas, so that we have proper areas that can give you a proper production. So that one, Chair, it covers both your grains, your fresh produce, your beef, and your so on. But another very interesting investment to the fruit production. There's work that our Dr. have done very well around 13 farms, your Kubenga Valley farms. But we have challenges there, Mr. Mhlaba. The challenges of the access towards those farms. I think there's a need of an investment of about more than 500 million rand there. They've done the EIA, it has been authorized. And then I think there's also the partner that deals with your Distel, that they want really a very serious, they want 50% of that can goes to your drinks, and other one really that can goes to your table fruit. So there is that commercial business plan. They've been working with Koha, they've also been working with the department, also been assisting them in that one. So it's a clear investment. Your hot grow, I think there's really very interesting partners that are in that space. Up to 600 million rand project. I think about 1,726 hectares have been done, the soil survey, and all that work that has been done. So that's another portfolio that is clear towards that direction. Then there's work. Now I've moved now already from infrastructure. I've touched on the agri processing, but again I'm going to the renewable energy. I think we have already partners here that are going to present the renewable energy. But I think the one that I just want to lift, that also develop are those that are dealing with the renewable investment from Germany that are not with us now. They are committing up to 500 million rand because they want to, we're in partnership, we'll be in partnership with Kocha, because we want to harvest the hydrogen around your Middelburg area, and then we want to push that hydrogen towards the Kocha side. And we're working with the Ngoba municipality, but we're also working with Emalahleni, because they also want to do the same renewable energy, focusing really between your solar. But those solar, they want to do it like tunnels, so that we are able really to plant underneath, but we're also dealing with something else. So I think Gustav is going to come back, Sodolopu, and then we're going to really be able to be ready with that business case. It's up to around about 500 million rand. But there are some challenges also, focusing really on the infrastructure, Ms. Mhlaba. One of those is the rail infrastructure. Because if you're moving the urea, one of the investors that is here, they're doing about 40 tons of steel. I think they have their own contract for the automotive sector. They 40 tons weekly of the steel, moving up the steel. That means we need our rail. Obviously, it's working that rail for the cement, I think so, for our industries, for the cement. But how to make sure that you can add other agro industries or other sectors, which is your urea from our case, and others really that can move from the harbor in East London, and also that can take you toward that direction. So we have those challenges, but the key issue, I think that becomes a challenge when it comes to the common industrial park. We've done some EIA, we're doing some zoning and subdivision as a hub within us. But the industrialists were clear that where there is a load shedding, if there can be a scheme, if I can put it like that, so that you find a way of a backup system when it comes to the common industrial park, because it can really tempers with our production and towards a commercialization. I think that model they've done with Kocha, I don't know Kocha if they're around, and I think also in Island and IDZ. But how can we make sure really that we are also supporting our industrialists? I think that's all, Chair. I think mostly, the industrialists, I think they will be able to come in per each pillar. The first pillar is infrastructure investment. I think the second pillar is agro-processing. The third pillar, it will take you towards your renewable energies and so on. The fourth one will be your mining corridors. And then the last one around your enterprise and your manufacturing sector. Thank you so much.
Nkosi Madiba. Madiba omde. Madiba omde. Mandilungise Madiba omde ngendonga. Thank you very much, colleagues. I think we're now proceeding to what's the conclusion of the first part. But there's few announcements that we wish to make. Today at around 6 o'clock or 6:30, we'll just check what the program provides. We'll be hosting a black tie wine tasting. So I just want to give it a character. It will take the form of a gala dinner, adults tasting a wine, and after that mingling with each other. That's going to be the shape of it. So we'll be in that, and I'm inviting everybody who's here to join that wine tasting. It's gonna be nice. And I want to repeat, it's a taste of a wine followed by adults mingling with each other. So it's gonna be nice. Let me invite the executive mayor to make a quick announcement as we close. And after the executive mayor is done, the House in its after the executive mayor has done the announcement, I will take instructions. As a lawyer, I always take instructions. As a lawyer, you don't say you are going to consult, you take instructions. So I'll take instructions and see how we proceed with the program. Over to you, Executive Mayor.
Thank you so much, Advocate Mini. Colleagues, delegates, we wish to make an addition from the work that was undertaken by Councillor Mbochane in acknowledging and indeed confirming the guests and delegates to this summit. To also include that we should profusely apologize for omitting, in terms of that acknowledgement, the traditional leadership here present. Ma sicho ukuba, again, as guided by the program itself, and in line with what was earlier communicated, that as part of the program, we are also to receive a message from Kumgani Dalimvula, a program of which he is then built to make that message tomorrow. However, namhlanje, I am being informed that zikhona inkosi ezikhoyo zezwe lakuthi eziyi-party of this summit today. Siyaxolisa ke kubantwana begazi ngokungayenzi that acknowledgement earlier on. Unkosi uJezile, we are informed that he has registered and he is here. Unkosi uJezile is also serving as the chairperson of the local house Upper Ekrizani. He is also an elected councillor representing the institution together with other traditional leaders in our own council. Siyafuna ke nokuqaphela uNkosi uWebe okhoyo naye apha. We further wish to further acknowledge the presence of Chief Sabata, who is also here. We thought, colleagues, it is important to correct that omission. It is important for us because part of what we should be able to do as deliverables emanating from the work that we do here is that of successfully forging partnerships with all stakeholders in the district, and that includes the institution of traditional leadership. So ndiyafuna ke egameni labaqoqozeleli ukuxolisa kakhulu ngala omission ibeyenziwe. We were further earlier on, as we're moving to a different phase of the program, alerted colleagues that the lunch will be ready at 2 o'clock. It is almost 2 o'clock. I am not really sure, in terms of the program, whether we'll break for how much time, if I can get that guidance, so that we're able to communicate quite clearly as we are breaking for lunch. We are expected to be here and seated at one time. Other than that, I thought let me just acknowledge Inkosi kodwa okwesibini ndixolise for the omission ebesiyenzile ekuqaleni. Thank you so much.
Colleagues, as I've said that I shall take instructions, I'm informed that a political decision was taken by a group of people to have the lunch ready at 2:30. So the lunch will be ready at 2:30. I am promised therefore that they will not further shift the goalpost to 3:00. 2:30 will remain a reliable benchmark. So we will at this stage, as a program director, you have inherent powers. People must get used to that. So from time to time, you exercise powers vested in you by virtue of the program. I will therefore now at this stage call Mr. Mhlaba as a convener of the first pillar as appears in the program. And he shall therefore ascend the stage and call his panel. And the panel in front will therefore occupy a different position to give credence to that panel so that it can occupy the position in front. Mr. Mhlaba, over to you. Let's give him a round of applause. Mr. Mhlaba is an inaugural CEO of the Development Agency of Chris Hani when it started. He was the first CEO. And I think he has also served as a chief of staff to the office of the premier. He is now heading the investment portfolio of the province. Let's give him another round of applause.
Diabulela kakhulu chairperson. Inkosi kakhulu. It's good to be back in the land of Chris Hani. Ebathenjini siyakhahlela. As the chairperson of the board has indicated, my name is Baphelele Mhlaba. Some years ago, the council of this particular district entrusted myself, Mr. Simpiwe Somdyala, as the inaugural chairperson of the board to start with the work of the establishment of the development agency. And I must say, Chair, now as Otolob, to stand here 10 years later and see the work that has been done since our initial efforts to make sure that development in this part of the region, a central corridor that anchors the Eastern Cape, in ekhaya, inendlela yokuba iqokolelwe yenziwe, and such that today we can sit here as the multitude of stakeholders to discuss development. This is beyond encouraging, and it's an honor 10 years later to stand here and talk about development in Chris Hani district. Thank you very much. My work has been actually made very easy by the current acting CEO. Because as much as we had allocated an hour to deal with the panel on economic infrastructure, the presentation that he has made has been cross-cutting and dealt with quite a lot of other issues. But before I can go any further, can I request that the panel members please do ascend the stage. I'm also going to request that I be guided, because the time, Chair, is 1 hour, but I'm told that at 2:30. The CEO actually that replaced me, if I remember very well. And Ms. Zolisa Pona from the Eastern Cape Department of Agrarian and Land Reform. Ukhona Chin Molo Bele. Ulothukela ungenozulu lo. Molobel. Mr. Simon Peterson. Is not here. Is there someone from Sandral here? All right. I would have actually expected them to speak a lot because the work that they're doing in our trade linkages is quite very important. And Sandral is actually investing and infusing quite a lot of billions on our road infrastructure. It will be interesting to see and note that the work that they're actually doing, I peleli nje pha ku R61, and that iyangena to connect the different components of our district so that nale agriculture sithetha ngayo ikwazi move from the areas where it is produced to the area to market, so to speak. Umamuntu Dana bendimbonile umamuntu Dana HOD of Dr. Da. And then can I also request Mr. Mbogoto? Okay. Is he here? Hybrid. Okay. And I think that pretty much completes the panel. So Mr. Shasha, ndinikwe instruction nayo mhlazo yethi bekumele bulabe emva kwami. Kuthiwa ubhalwe nge-fine print apha akhange ukubona. Ndiyabulela kakhulu. All right, thank you. All right, no problem. The workers of this panel, as I indicated, ladies and gentlemen, has been cut out, and indeed the outline that was presented by Mr. Hala is ncedisile kakhulu. Now, when we talk about economic infrastructure, we're not talking about complicated things, but in essence, we're talking about a need for us to think together about how we can shape things such that in the next 5 to 10 years, we could be talking at a different level of development. So we talk about water, and I think this is the reason why OMM together and Mr. Shasha are quite critical here. Because again, government has been through the MIG, the RBIC and other bulk water infrastructure conditional grants, investing significant amount of money so that we could and can have water for development. Not just the water that comes off our taps so that we can drink every day, but industry that is here cannot be able to continue doing what they need to do without water. In fact, we never really approve anything for development if we do not have water as a base. The second component is obviously what I think Minister utheseke zayithetha wayiyeka. Ndiyabona uba usinike opportunity into yoba si-investe kulo mcimbi we-energy. And I'm also, Minister, not going to say anything about ESCOM. I'll take your cue. I'll say nothing about ESCOM. Safe to say that pa engocha kula irrigation scheme, there is some small-scale generation capacity there, which I think amongst the things that we're thinking about today and other efforts around how do we generate electricity and how do we make sure that we have consistent supply of electricity, because it's not just about having it, for half the day. It's about making sure that there's consistent supply of that electricity. If you're running a production plant, you need to be sure that your shift, your entire shift, there's consistent supply of that electricity, and it's not going to be for any reason inqanyulwe phakathi. Then we will speak about technology infrastructure, and I think Minister Ndabeni in her past life was training ngokwaneleyo kule area. And there's a fiber line that crosses this particular district on the N6 that I don't think we're tapping enough on it to make sure that we don't just grow basic, but we are able to meet the world-class development needs around ensuring that we've got proper technology infrastructure to be able to grow our economy. Road infrastructure, I spoke about it, and I do have a glimpse about the work that Sandral is doing, and I think we could be able to do more. We're looking at the hub and spoke model, and one other thing, and that I think I have to mention, especially when the HOD of Dr. Da does join us on stage. MEC Mfoko, and it had 10 years ago, there was an opportunity for this particular district to have its own SEZ. And the leadership at the time took a decision that this particular hub and spoke model that we're speaking about now was not really going to be anchored in a industrial park. But we, at the time, were tasked to actually think beyond an industrial park and an SEZ. But there was a decision that was taken that OR Tambo was going to go first and establish its own SEZ. And as we think today about economic infrastructure and some of the challenges that we're facing, I think 10 years later, it's not such a bad thing to go back to that thinking. Because some of the challenges that we're facing today around economic infrastructure in this particular district, some of the levers of ensuring that economic infrastructure is infused in terms of government investment lie within the tools and instruments that are contained in that SEZ package. And I thought, let me just say it, MEC, because it's quite important that part of our responsibility in keeping institutional memory is that these things don't ever get to be forgotten. And that when we go back, we talk about development. Nogo, 10 years, ininzana, sinikile OR Tambo, uba maike qhube 10 years. Nogo singake siphinde ngoku sithethe enye language. My panelists are Mr. Paki George, Mr. Masholoku, Mama Zolisa, but I will start with the district first, if the district does allow me, and for MM to come and share with us the efforts of the district and their contribution towards economic infrastructure. Thank you, MM.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mhlaba. Mr. Mhlaba, let me start by greeting the political leadership present in this gathering. On the same note, allow me to greet members of administration who are also present in the session. Also allow me to greet representatives from the state-owned enterprises, the representatives from the sector departments of the province and national as well. Lastly, let me greet the investors, the most important stakeholder in this gathering. Mr. Mhlaba, in unpacking the district infrastructure perspective, as a district, we felt that it would be proper for us to start by unpacking the infrastructure development profile of the district, focusing one in water and sanitation infrastructure, two electricity infrastructure, four road infrastructure, fourthly, the housing infrastructure. One, I must indicate, Mr. Mhlaba, that as a district, in dealing with challenges, infrastructure challenges in the district, currently we've made a provision of 61 million to deal with electricity-related challenges. The funding that is coming from the national department, that is the INEP. This is the budget that is allocated to the local municipalities who are responsible for infrastructure development, sorry, for electricity infrastructure development in the district. I'm sure you'll agree with me that if one talks about 61 million, you know, under the current electricity infrastructure problems the district is confronted with, this is not enough. If I can proceed to the provision for road infrastructure in the district. In the current financial year, that is 2022-2023, a provision of 220 million, you know, is set aside for road infrastructure in the district. This is the budget that is allocated to local municipalities and also the roads department in the province. If one proceeds to water and sanitation, you know, budget provision for the current financial year, the district, that is Chris Hani municipality, has provided an amount of 650 million for water and sanitation infrastructure development in the district. Mr. Mhlaba, allow me to recognize Mr. Shasha, who will present, you know, the technical component. When one talks about the technical components, if one talks about 220 million that is provided for roads infrastructure, Mr. Shasha will be able to, you know, present, you know, the areas that will be covered under this, you know, budget. If one talks about water and sanitation with a budget provision of 650 million in the district, Mr. Shasha will be able to give, you know, the technical details of that. In handing over the mic to Mr. Shasha, I think it will also be important for me to indicate that there are infrastructure development opportunities in the district. If one talks about the renewable energy, you know, space, as a solution, you know, to deal with electricity infrastructure problem. But Mr. Shasha in his presentation will allude to that one. Thank you, Mr. Mhlaba. It won't be long. We'll take less than 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, MM. Greetings to the session, to the political leadership. Greetings to the traditional leadership. Adalmvola. Greetings to the heads of department, and greetings to also all heads of department and heads of the state-owned enterprises and my colleagues. As MM has alluded to that, in terms of the roads infrastructure, the district itself, I would say it is crisscrossed with roads that are national roads, your N6 and your N10s, which are all crossing and end up to the ocean, to the coast. We do have that leverage. And also provincial roads, which are crisscrossing the entire district, which is also covered. And also we have municipal roads. And all those roads, we've got two types of roads, which is surfaced roads and also the gravel roads, which we are maintaining and also following up on a regular basis through a program that we call it a Rural Roads Asset Management Program, which is funded by the Provincial Department, COGTA. We are having about 9 million to just do a conditional assessment of those roads so that each and every municipality can get an access to that information to understand the state of their roads, if they are, what state are they at, so that they can be looked at. Coming to the Department of Transport, what is in that for this financial year? The recovering of roads, I think there is a recovering of roads which are provincial in the area of Ngobo with a total budget of 36.2 million. And also there's another recovering of road, which is the upgrading of the road from Tsolwana Nature Reserve and internal streets of Tagastad. Still on that one, with a total budget of about 250,000, and also there is another planned road which is for upgrading, which is TR 12733 and TR 02541, which is targeting from Thornhill to Tsolwana Nature Reserve, which is another tourism attracting area in our district. There is also with a budget of about 90 million in phases, and also there is an upgrading of the Figile Kwadana Drive, which is in the Quindustria area, which is planned for 12 months with a budget of 98 million for that area. We have also looking at the electrification status of the district. With electrification status, we're saying for Emalahleni, there is an electrification program that is targeting the wards in that area, which will be looking at the budget of the first area will be about 9.2 million, and also the other wards extensions, which is still at the planning stage, it's about 623 million. But in total, all that budget for Emalahleni, the Malahleni budget is meant to be 10.2 million, with Ngobo targeting with a total budget of 12.9 million. For Enoch Mkijima, they have a total budget of 13.8 for electrification. And also in Tsigaye too, they have a budget, I think, of 11.5 million. And also in Ngobaya Temba, they have, there are no fields for Ngobaya Temba. Saki Sizwe, they've got 9.4 million budget, but all in total with the areas that I mentioned would have a budget of 61 million for electrification. Then on the issue of water and sanitation, we have our dams, two types of dams in the district. We've got municipal-owned dams as well as the Department of Water and Sanitation dams. All of these dams, we are utilizing them for water consumption, for human consumption, as well as for irrigation. And those that are in the municipal space, we are sitting in terms of their levels, we're sitting at about 82% overall in terms of the available water. So we are not yet affected by drought since we have come out of that situation, which was a prolonged drought. But now we are safely saying we do have enough water. We've got dams in the area of Moltino, which is the Paradise Dam, and Roy Dam, Poplar Dam, New Dam. Those dams, you find them in the Stegstrom area. Then we have a Bonkolo Dam, which is here in Queenstown, and also Thompson Dam in Elliot, and Anderson Dam in Dordrecht. The Munich Dam is still under construction as we speak. And also the Department of Water and Sanitation Dam, Watertown, Onga, and Oxkral Dam, with only Oxkral that is used for irrigation only, not for human consumption. The rest are we are we are drawing water for water consumption from. Also, Lubisi Dam and Sochana, which is supplying Tofimvaba and in rural areas of Insigayetu, including the Tsomo with the Sochana one. Then the Ngocha is only supplying in Ngobo rural areas as well as the areas of the Tofimvaba and Tsomo area. Makubeni is supplying the Tatatu and rural areas of Tatatu. Then Don Refir is supplying Indwe area. We have a good water coverage, and the district, yes, is also characterized by mountainous slopes with vast areas which are supplied by boreholes. We're not only drawing water from the dams, we're also using groundwater. Areas like Middelburg, Hofmeer, Tagerstad, and part of Stekstrom are dependent on groundwater. So we are also embraced with that kind of water resource, which is underground water. Coming to our water treatment, we purify most of our water through the treatment works. We have a capacity of, the design capacity of 100 megaliters per day in the district, but we're currently operating beyond the design capacity. The operational capacity of our treatment works is sitting at 104 megaliters, which is a concern that needs to be looked at, which we can look at so that we embrace new development like new houses if we expand that space, because any development has to take into cognizance those parameters. The other wastewater treatment works, on wastewater treatment works, we have a design capacity overall of 43% on that one, but we're currently operating beyond capacity at 48.6%, which is a concern because most of these treatment works were not designed for the current situation. They were meant for the few so that they can supply, but now with the new migration and new settlements, we are operating now beyond the capacity, and that is posing serious challenges. But nonetheless, there are quick intervention projects that we are dealing with. There are quick interventions for the Kratok sewer infrastructure, which has been approved by municipal infrastructure grant. We are going to upgrade the Kratok sewer infrastructure starting in this financial year 2022-2023 going forward. And also Tagerstad is also covered in the MIG quick interventions. The Middelburg is also covered, the wastewater treatment works, and Tagerstad wastewater treatment works. Isada wastewater treatment works also covered, and Ilinge wastewater treatment works. Ikofimvaba wastewater treatment works is also part of the intervention programs, and also the planning of looking into the development of the water services of Imvaba. And coming to the possible investment opportunities in the infrastructure, we are opening up for private partnership in infrastructure development, especially when it comes to the old infrastructure, because our infrastructure that we are operating, if we look at the history of the towns that we are having now, the infrastructure that is underground there has been there ever since they were built these towns, dating far back in the 80s, in the 1880s. So we are operating that kind of an infrastructure. So we're looking for opportunities there in the infrastructure development, and also the development of new resources like your Tata Dam. We have a possible dam that has been approved by the Department of Water and Sanitation at Ngobo, which requires close to R1 billion for development. And also there is an opportunity in the information and communication technology systems, the telemetry systems, smart metering, and anti-theft tampering systems, and fuel management system. The anti-theft tampering system, we have a serious problem in the district of theft and vandalism. Our infrastructure is vandalized on a regular basis, and those people are taking this equipment just for selling as scrap material, and it's causing serious challenges in the area of providing the service of providing water to communities. There is also an opportunity in the renewable energy, especially in the wastewater, where we can make use of the methane gas from the treatment works, the digesters, and also the sludge management. There is an opportunity. Also an opportunity under the aquaculture in the dams in terms of looking at the fish farming, because we've got big dams which can also attract tourism for fishing. And also looking at the replacement program of old electrical network infrastructure, where we find that our towns are operating the infrastructure that is very old. I think that is all from our side. Thank you very much, Chair.
Enkosi kakhulu, Mr. Shasha. I allowed the district to be elaborative in terms of the kind of investment and budgets that they have for the various economic infrastructure aspects that we're talking about, particularly because it paints a particular picture. I think as we sit here, all of us understand that with the kind of budgets that Mr. Shasha is talking about here, they are not the kind of budgets that would be able to take us to the next level of growth as a district, for that matter. And therein lies the opportunity. So part of why we allowed this detail to be given to you was for you as investors, you as partners, to be able to see where you can be able to come in and partner with the district to realize some of these things. Because it's only going to be through partnerships that we are going to be able to make a difference and a dent in some of the challenges that we face. Mr. Phaki, ba manage imali ndifuna ukugqibela ngabo. Ndenzela into ubuthumele SMS pha ku MEC ubuza uba angakongezela ngamalini. Uzivile mose izingxaki zethu into ba sithanda uthi xaxa. Mr. Masholo kuze yedwa uminister umshiye ngemva. Sisolisa mandiza apha kuwe. Sithethe ngalento alomhlaba. Nangalento ba usincedisa njani sikukhululeke. Singeka appropriate or expropriate. Sawukwenza yonke appropriation eyenziwayo because siyawufuna lo mhlaba. Ndicele umama uNdodane to be on standby because sifuna uthetha ngezi assets za agriculture immediately afterwards. Nkosi ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. My greetings to the political leadership, to the chiefs, mayors, colleagues from all the departments, all the sector departments, agencies, communities. I'm Zolisa Bana from that office of the Regional Land Claims Commission in the Eastern Cape. There is a claim that was lodged for the Ngocha community in respect of the land known as the Ngocha Irrigation Scheme and other portions of the land in the 10 clustered villages in Ngocha. And then now, this land claim, it was assessed and was found valid. It is composed of about 1,934 original dispossessed individuals. And then now, in terms of the restoration or restitution option, the claimants have opted for the restoration of land and development. And then we've paid them financial compensation for the land or portions of land that are not restorable. And then the land that is restorable is the Ngocha Irrigation Scheme. And then we've done the survey of the land so that we're able to exercise the state domestic functions on that land. And then again, we have also identified servitudes, for instance, for telecom, for Department of Water, and then those are also, in fact, those have been registered. In terms of development and economic growth, as I've indicated that they've opted for restoration of land. We restore land to an entity. And then now the entity that was formed was the Ngocha Komango Communal Property Association, which has representatives from all the 10 clustered villages in Ngocha. So now that CPA is going to be the land holding entity. So the land to be restored is to be restored to that Ngocha Komango CPA, which is also present here. As I've indicated that this CPA is the land holding entity, there has to be a business entity to run the business, because CPA cannot run the business as land owners. Coming to future development, post-development, and economic growth, the Ngocha land claim is a pilot for the settlement models of claims in the agricultural sector. So the portion of land is not restored yet, but to ensure development post-settlement, there have been engagements with the CPA and the South African Farmers Development Association to grow agriculture and agro-processing in Ngocha irrigation scheme. For instance, we know that currently there is Amadlelo Agri with dairy enterprise in the scheme, operating on 50-50% share with the community. And then now there are collaborations between Amadlelo and SAFTA. In fact, there is a deep business plan that has been drafted with engagements of the CPA, SAFTA, and also Amadlelo. And then now in terms of that business plan, there is a plan for a production of yellow and white maize, so the maize will be able to feed in fact, will be able to supply Amadlelo with maize. And also the plan for vegetables. There is a plan also for production of macadamia nuts. And then, as I've indicated that the land is to be restored to the CPA, we know that that land is in a communal space. There are chiefs who are the custodians of the land. And then again, we've engaged with the chiefs. The chiefs are the ex-official members of the CPA. And then now even in that CPA committee, they've co-opted members of the traditional council so that we ensure that there is stability, because if there's no stability, there can't be development. There are challenges with there in Ngocha. For instance, we've identified that even though there is a planned production by SAFTA, the bulk infrastructure, the infield infrastructure has to be restored again because it's rehabilitated. So there are challenges, but with engagements with other departments and private partners, we can ensure that there can be development in Ngocha. I think, thank you.
Siyabulela sisolisa. Lento yoba investors azizi xa kukhona land claims ayikho. Or sizayitshintsha apha eKrizani sithi ikhona. I'm saying this because this is one irrigation scheme that has got an investor in it, which is Amadlelo. And in that particular irrigation scheme, MEC, we're not producing less than 25 million liters of milk a year. And this comes from 2 dairies that are in that scheme. And with this holding entity now being a landholder, I think there's an opportunity to invest in 2 more dairies in Ngoga. And we can talk about a dairy producing factory, possibly here in the industrial park, that processes the milk that comes from here, instead of that milk being processed elsewhere. Because at the moment, it is processed outside of the district. Trucks come in every day and they fetch that milk, and it is processed rather elsewhere. And I think these are the silent opportunities in which we can bring our people together in terms of development. And the CPA model, if we can really fix this land tenure problem, because whenever we talk about investors and the financing institutions, whether the development finance institutions, the land tenure problem becomes one of those challenges that we can't overlook. And now we've got a solution. Mama Jordan, zazakho eza assets. Siyazifuna imisebenzi pha kwezi irrigation schemes zonke. Qhubeka.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me extend a word of greetings to the political leadership, and I want to rise on the protocol that has already been established. My sincere apologies. Indeed, if we're talking about assets, in fact, I was just whispering to Program Director that it is not just the irrigation schemes that we should be talking about when we're talking about the assets, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them, because on the program I was asked specifically to focus on the issue of the UN World Food Program and perhaps what that presents or opportunities that it comes with for this area and this district. So, I think I want to begin, perhaps, Program Director, with a quote by a farmer who is Brenda Scoop. So Brenda makes a quote that her grandfather used to tell her that once in your life you may need a lawyer. Once in your life you may need a priest. Once in your life you may need a doctor. And I think it was the healthy people of those days that needed not to see doctors so often as we do these days. And she says, the grandfather then says, 3 times a day, every day, you need a farmer for 365 days. And then I took a look at the overview budget of the Eastern Cape Province in particular. And the Eastern Cape Province spends nearly 6 billion on food, and this is money that comes from the provincial treasury of the Eastern Cape, and in particular the 3 top departments being the Department of Health, the Department of Education, and the Department of Social Development, 6 billion nearly. The sad thing is that the 6 billion of this food comes from the Western Cape, and it comes from KZN. The most sad part of this is that the products that come from Western Cape and those that come from KZN are of inferior quality. So the Eastern Cape is deemed as a dumping site in retail terms and in food retail terms in particular, because the 2 markets take their best produce to your markets outside because they fetch the revenue there in foreign currency. And every product that is not that good for those markets because it does not meet a particular standard and quality, it then comes here. You need not to look further. Go to any function in any village. I come from a village. One time there was cooking. I looked in the pot because I always like to assist in that area whenever I'm in a function. Probably some of you have noticed this. Take a look when they cook a chicken and open the pot and see the color of the water. It's not only brown, but it's foaming. You can almost take a dish and scoop out the foam out of a pot. This is the quality of food that we are eating, and these are the products that end up in our markets and they end up in our bodies. Now, if we are going to be really doing something, convener, about the status quo, just to borrow 2 billion of that 6 billion, and you say the 2 billion of that food must be produced here in the Eastern Cape, and that money must circulate here. And of course, it will take you extra mile to even go to the length of doing and looking at legislation and policy that is going to legislate that to ensure that it does happen. Otherwise, we can be wasting our time and we can sweat and talk until cows come home saying, let's change the status quo. But if policy and legislation doesn't follow that, it may not really help and assist. Let me come, Program Chair, on what I was asked to do. I'm sorry to digress, but I thought that the Chris Hani district, with all the opportunities and potential that this area has, could be lining itself up to say, how much do we take of that 2 billion? And of course, the CEO of CHDA correctly so, saying that the nexus, we need to close on the nexus, because if you talk primary production, and there is no way where you are going to look at the value addition and everything else, otherwise you'll experience post-harvest wastage if we don't close on that. Coming to the assets, I'm just going to confine, Chair, with the request that you have made on your program. The infrastructure of agriculture that is in the province, and in particular in this district we are in, it has already been mentioned, the collaboration and partnerships that we have with all the irrigation schemes that are here on the crops or on the dairy, and we are also having a red hub. One of the red hubs are in here, Emalahleni, and there is a secondary cooperative as well there, that is already operating there. The red hub is operating at less of its capacity. Literally, it's underperforming. And I am sad to say many of the red hubs, or perhaps most of our infrastructure, operates at very, very low capacity compared to its potential. This is for the reason why the MEC, in her policy speech for this financial year, has particularly focused on how do we revitalize and revamp and revive these red hubs so that they become true aggregators. In especially that, as I was saying, there's opportunities with the 6 billion of food in the province, and in particular with the contracts, transversal contracts that the department, Dr. Da, has entered into with various departments like the military, contract with education, and we are now considering the contract with Department of Health, because these departments are saying we want to procure directly from the farmers, but we are not going to have time to go talk to Sipokas, go talk to Bapelele, you get the 3 cabbages there, you get the 2 there. We want volume, and we want to go to a one-stop shop where we are just going to go pick up this volume. And this is for the reason why MEC in her speech was focusing on how then do we use the already existing infrastructure. And I think that's where our focus can come in as the department. Even before we think of new infrastructure, I think our focus should be in to say what is already there. How do we turn these white elephants to become functional? Because they have everything that can be utilized. And as I've mentioned, the Emalahleni one, there's capacity to produce quite a significant amount of maize per hour, about 3 tons per hour it can do. That's what it can do in its capacity. There's grit that is happening there. They are doing grit chips that they are selling to the East London market. There is also sorghum that is already done there. There's a little bit here on animal feed. They are doing about 11.6 ton and they are selling to the local markets. How does then this district position itself working with the various entities and bringing in the Department of Agriculture as well? And insofar as the opportunities that exist in the markets. So the department has signed a contract with the United Nations World Food Programme, which is what I was asked to talk about. Now, the World Food Programme is a UN program where they procure bulk food everywhere and anywhere. What they do, they bring their own packaging. So all that they do and they need is to find a space that can do the primary production. That should be of quality, of course. They are looking at very serious volumes because they supply food around the world, and in particular in conflict areas or in places where there's been disasters. They provide food where there's food insecurity. But they buy bulk and they store these foods in their various warehouses that are about in 35 countries around the world. So they are saying they are wanting to do this now in the Eastern Cape for the reason that they realize that if they keep giving these contracts to very, very, very big industrialized countries that produce in bulk, they are not really addressing the issue of creating the jobs, the issue of creating sustainable livelihoods, and especially in the rural areas, which our province is by far and large a rural province. So they have kind of shifted their methodology of doing things, wherein they now want to partner with countries that can be able to look at a commodity that can be produced at a communal level, but that commodity then gets aggregated so that it can be packaged. So they've got their packages, their packaging. So all they would need from Emalahleni is to find the people, which is what is the department, is the program that will be doing. The budget that has been allocated for the revitalization of the red hubs is 11.6 million. And that money is mainly going to be focusing on how we ensure, because for certain markets, there's a particular type of requirements and compliance things that your infrastructure must look at. So we're looking at partnering with other, because indeed, as you have correctly said so, whatever budget we can put will never be enough. So that's why it's quite very important that we look at our budget, we look at who else brings into that basket so that we can really fix that nexus issue that the CEO was talking about of CHDA. But the plan is to then produce the following commodities that are needed for this particular massive contract of the UN World Food Programme. The first is wheat, so they're looking for wheat, and we know that this district has the wheat. Elliot, Cradock, we know that there is there. There could be other areas as well. They're looking for the dry beans, which we know that this is an area where that commodity grows well. Oat, that is here. Barley is another commodity which is here as well, and including the maize. So those are the 5 commodities that they will be looking at. That is an opportunity. And we're saying with the infrastructure that we're already having in Emalahleni, we're going to be able to utilize that infrastructure. There is 134.8 million that has been allocated over and above the 11 million for the red hubs. 11.6 is just only for the red hubs, and 134.8 million is for the general agriculture infrastructure, on-farm and off-farm infrastructure. And that as well presents an opportunity. And of course, we can have these budgets here and there, but we really need to look at that issue of planning together so that we can maximize the budgets and the capabilities that each of us bring to the table, so that we kind of have a one approach. In so doing, we are going to be able, otherwise, infrastructure alone indeed, these infrastructures become white elephant if there is no primary produce. Even the place that was launched this morning by the Honorable Minister it would not have had a proper launch if there were no potatoes and other produce there. So our key focus as a department is equally on the primary produce so that we ensure the volumes and we ensure the qualities. Thank you so much.
Siyabulela maMondutana. Le 2 billion uthi sayifumana kubani? Go Miss Mvogo. Hayi bakutsho mna MC. Kutsho HOD. Okay, all right. Mise hala betukuzamela ke le Nexus. Ngoku uMS Mvogo ingathi kasincede sincama. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've taken quite a bit of your time. I know that we started a bit late, but we still respect the fact that at some point you have to eat. You know, as HOD was saying here, we need a farmer 3 times a day, consistently. We're not going to miss this time for this farmer. So I'm gonna plead with my panel. So we've started talking about the bulk infrastructure of the district, and we laid the land. And in a nutshell, MM says we've got about, give or take, plus or minus $1 billion that we've set aside. Usisolisa was khulula wathi solve as problems a land tenure. Uzane mali ezinkulu HOD. Safuna ndiyame ndiyotya ndiyozicinga ezimali azanazo. Xa sibuya Khadebe Nobel khani sidibanisele le nto nisixela uba ningaza namalini ukwenzela into yoba ibe ngathi noko iyadibana. So without taking much further of your time, bekuthiwe nizawutya emva ko-2 andifuna ude ndinityise emveni ko-3. Chairperson, ndicela ukhawuleze uzosenzela just a few announcements. We're going to break and we're going to go to lunch. We're going to come back, give about 15 minutes, and we wrap up this panel. We respect your health. Siyabazi abantu beqamba kudala bejonga iwatch.
Thank you, Mr. Mhlaba. And I'm happy you made emphasis to the fact that and there was no specific mention. Ms. Mvogo, those of you who remember the story of the Merchant of Venice, the agreement about the pound of flesh, and when it had to be cut, and a point in limine was raised that there should be no blood because it was not part of the agreement. So it was almost the story of the Merchant of Venice after 2, and it can be any time, even 1 minute before 3. Colleagues, thank you. The lunch is now ready. The executive mayor have directed in the following format that all his guests, the councillors, the mayors and the executive mayors, the HODs, the DGs, the ministers, and all the municipal managers will go to the restaurant at the actual casino, as well as the business community. And all other guests will go to the restaurant and the place that has been designated for lunch, that is at the casino hotel. So the other guests will proceed to the casino of the executive mayor, and the other guests will proceed to the casino hotel. I hope that chronology is sufficient. Also the board members, Dr. Keu and your team, you will also be joining the executive mayor. With all powers vested in me, executive mayor, I declare this gathering as temporary adjourned for the purpose of lunch, and we shall be gathered here at 4 o'clock, which will take exactly an hour. 4 o'clock, Mr. Mhlaba will proceed with the panel. Thank you very much.